Vince McMahon, not fond of the Fiend. Have we learned more details about the WWE exit or the unceremonious exit of one of the more popular and talked about wrestling characters of the last few years? Why did Bray Wyatt leave the WWE? We don't know, but we know a little bit more about what possibly led to it. Plus, WWE NXT is going to have a new takeover to take over that pay-per-view slot in December. Plus, AEW is going to do their very own little battle of the belts. Their own battle of the belts. Why don't you just battle with your thumbs right now? Hit the like button. Get in the conversation. Share the link of your stink. It's the Sportskeeda Wrestling top story of the day. Watch out, watch out, watch out, watch out. What is up, everybody? It's Kellam here with Jose G and Jeremy Bennett. This is the stories we're going to run down today, talking about Bray Wyatt, talking about some backstage stuff with Vince McMahon, and so much more. If you are with us, go ahead and jump into the conversation, especially if we're with us for the first time. Let's get into this Bray Wyatt story right away. What is the latest, gentlemen? We have learned more about the unquestionably odd exit of Bray Wyatt from WWE just a few months ago.
Yeah, we learned from Fightful Select, of course, some backstory that I think a lot of people may have already known, but just in case you didn't know, there was things between Randy Orton and Bray Wyatt, and they weren't happy with the creative direction of the match that happened at WrestleMania, which turned out to be Bray Wyatt's last match, not his last appearance, but his last official match. And things were basically changed a couple of days before the show. There was never a true creative end game for the whole story that went on for over 6 months. And originally Orton was supposed to take time off, and so the Fiend was supposed to win this match. That all got changed, and numerous people backstage said Wyatt was very outspoken thinking about the bad creative, and some think that Vince McMahon just didn't like him going forward due to that. Creative was also told about a lot of frustrations around the burned Fiend angle, specifically the suit and being able to move around in it. Wyatt has not really confirmed this himself, but of course, now that his no compete is up, it is possible that he will break his silence on a lot of things coming up. But they were, of course, told that the release was a budget cut. Does not know if this was just directed at Wyatt himself, just with the things that went down over the course of April to July. So very interesting stuff coming out from internally about the whole situation of that last 3 months of Wyatt's tenure with the WWE.
What do you think, Jose? I mean, this was certainly one of the bigger stories of the year for wrestling in general. Is just Bray Wyatt leaving WWE. Obviously, everyone leaving WWE, but Bray Wyatt leaving WWE at a very popular, point of his career. A very elusive character. You only get to see him now and then, but certainly one that a casual fan, a hardcore fan, we never got asked more about a character and what that character is going to do on screen.
Absolutely.
More than Bray Wyatt, maybe The Undertaker or CM Punk, in terms of what are they going to do? What are they going to do? People intrigued about what they're going to do. He's on that list of guys. So now people are interested in what he's going to do next. But obviously the way he left WWE, kind of weird. Seems like WWE has a little bit more, you have a little bit more of an idea now where there was a creative difference here about where things were going, and maybe he wasn't happy playing the part anymore, but at the same time wanted to dictate the part to them, which isn't the way WWE wants to do business. You don't tell them how they're going to book, WrestleMania. Or
it's really interesting because you're absolutely right. This one was one of the biggest news stories of the year. We covered it extensively when it was happening during the big releases earlier this year.
Happened on a Saturday.
And what I take back from this, when you're looking at from the fans' point of view, and you're looking at all the reactions from the internet wrestling community, right? A lot of people kind of felt that budget cuts wasn't a sufficient explanation. They already knew, like, okay, something else was up. Everybody didn't like how that match ended. No matter of fact, you said it yourself, Jeremy, that even the people backstage, the officials, didn't like how that match turned out. So at the end of it, that report from Fightful, I think that kind of fits that missing piece of the puzzle, if that's what it is, creative differences.
Yeah, because it felt like a lot of Monday Night Raw that gets ripped up and torn up 30 minutes before they go live. And that's kind of what they did on a WrestleMania angle. Though I thought it was really cool what they did with Alexa Bliss and things like that.
The match wasn't great.
No, it wasn't. It was more of a spectacle.
It was more of a spectacle. And I think I guess that's what people want out of Bray, though. I mean,
and the Burn Fiend thing, we've never heard anything about that, and to hear that was kind of negatively done too, negatively received by Wyatt is kind of interesting, because you figure those type of different wrinkles in the character are something he would like as a horror fan, but maybe it just wasn't done right.
That Inferno match was an absolute spectacle.
Yeah.
It was I will say that it's one of the craziest things they've ever done in the.
I'll tell you
Thunderdome
something
era.
here, guys. The entire story itself was really good. It was told well until the very end with that.
It was kind of drawn out, though. It was kind of drawn out.
I understand that, but there was a lot of layers to the story. You added Alexa Bliss into the story, Randy Orton, then the Fiend gets burned, and then he comes back, and then he magically rejuvenates into the old version of the Fiend. So there's a lot of layers to this story. It took 6 months to tell. We didn't get the payoff that we wanted. But you know what? It is what it is, man.
The problem is there's a lot of times where WWE doesn't do enough long-term storytelling, so it was kind of good to see something like that, and it just like today they're doing a very long-term story with Roman Reigns, and it's been very good almost all throughout the way, and it's not even close to being done.
It threads in like almost half the company. It's just everyone going at Roman,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And how long can he keep doing this? Is becoming the question. So
I think that's a great comment right there by King Dixon. They blew a very good storyline.
Yeah,
you're right.
They did.
It's just like you hear about all these things that sounded like that were going to be great on Monday Night Raw and got torn up half an hour before you go live. And this is a very good example of that, but on a bigger scale. They basically had something probably good, tore it up. Orton was ready to go on vacation, tore that up, and then instead he had to kind of have a mysterious disappearance with RK Bro later on in the year for his vacation instead.
So what's next? His non-compete is up. Bray Wyatt changed his Twitter, which is one of his biggest social media accounts. He retained the name Bray Wyatt WWE at Bray Wyatt WWE Bray Wyatt, right? Changed it to William Rotunda 6. Got Rotunda 6 on there.
Yeah, and he hasn't really made a statement since the 2 days. I mean, I think he's replied to a few tweets here and there, but he's never put out any sort of statement since the 2 days thing.
He did comment on this story, basically saying that it was Johnny and Bruce, and so that is a reference to WWE executives, Bruce
People
Pritchard
Power
and John Laurinaitis, who's the head of talent relations.
We got a hell of a comment here, guys. This is a hell of a comment by Andy Carr on Facebook saying, nobody's bigger than the company. In my opinion, too many talent overestimate their importance. Charlotte might be the next one to make this error. She will find herself with 20 other people in a segment on AEW if she's not careful.
Ouch. So there's a lot of shots fired in that.
We
will talk AEW in a little bit, too. We will have a story about AEW. And someone that everyone thinks is going there. Everyone just thinks he's going there, right? Even though he main evented Monday Night Raw last night, everyone just thinks he's going there.
I still think he's going there.
You still think you still want him to go there.
No, I still think he's going to go there.
I don't know. It's very 50-50.
I don't think so.
It's a toss-up for me.
He's going to direct and produce and be executive producer to horror movies.
Let's get into this Kevin Owens. Let's get into this Kevin Owens story. I know we were going to do something else second, but we already brought it up. So let's jump right into it. Kevin Owens, Monday Night Raw, has interjected himself very, very quickly after 2 big weeks on the Raw brand. They're really getting the horse behind Kevin Owens here on Monday Night Raw. He had a big match with Rey Mysterio. He was featured in the main event angle. He's now kind of looming around the title picture. And you have Seth Rollins, who is the number one contender here coming up down the line. They haven't designated when that match is going to be with the current big champ on Monday Night Raw, WWE champion Big E, but a non-title match set here between Kevin Owens and Big E this past Monday. Seth Rollins at ringside and commentary gets involved, kind of distracts both men. They have a heads bump, so it's a very clever ending. So Kevin Owens still kind of retains like the moral high ground, but Big E doesn't trust him as Seth Rollins, hit Big E, and so Kevin Owens was like, do I take advantage of this? And he went for the cover, only to be rolled up and pinned. So
let's not forget Big O turned on the New Day. Remember, don't forget that.
Yeah,
Yes.
Big O turned on the New Day, but what was the most eyebrow-raising situation in the interaction between Big E and KO was it could be 3 months or 3 years. It doesn't matter when I get my opportunity, I'm gonna get my opportunity. And then Big E responds, "Well, it doesn't matter where it's at. We're not Mount Rushmore up in here."
Explain the Mount Rushmore statement to them, Jeremy. I know you're aware of this.
Mount Rushmore refers to 4 guys that when they were in PWG: Kevin Steen, Adam Cole, and the Young Bucks.
Oh my God! It's like they're playing to smart fans that are in the know.
I just feel
like they did something for fans that follow on the internet that tweet about wrestling and think they know things, and then write it into a storyline.
I just feel the booking of KO over the past several months has been very linear to what happened with the guy who just released a book today, John Moxley. It feels very much like Moxley on his way out of the company. That's why it's not a want. I still believe that Owens is going to leave the company at the end of January.
Well, if he does, they're not doing it in a light manner. They're featuring him, and
they featured Moxley too.
They feature Moxley. They feature Daniel Bryan on their way out, and Moxley went out the way he went out, apparently unhappy with everything.
Nia Jax beating him.
Yeah, and still did the favors and did all these different things, and but then you have Daniel Bryan having one of the best TV matches of the year in his final match in WWE.
It seems like the door. I've seen word that the door is still open there with Danielson and WWE.
Yes.
He did leave on good terms. It's not
I was talking
terms.
to some people in the industry this week who may be more aware of it than I will, and all they could say was it's not closed.
Yeah,
that's all I could hear from people, and I've tried to pry, but I didn't get much more.
If there's one thing that came out over the last 24 to 48 hours, that excerpt from Mox's book where he says that Bryan Danielson is the greatest professional wrestler to ever live. I think those words hold up to that to Bryan Daniels' reputation.
Another thing worth noting about is, if you're Kevin Owens, you're going to it's going to be a significant offer from WWE for you to stay here.
Yeah.
And what is that going to be? And to say that won't be appealing to you, if you get some type of creative caveats that you like, if you get some type of breaks and different things like that. Maybe WWE looks at the deals that guys are getting at All Elite and says, how can we compete with those deals? How can we make ourselves more lucrative to these high in desire type talents? And I don't think WWE is going to roll over and do this easily.
But at the same time, they let go of Strowman because of making $3 million a year. They let go of Bray Wyatt. So do they have the capacity to sign Owens to that big time deal right now with who they got and who they want to bring in? And don't forget, a lot of AEW contracts end up in 2022, and WWE is going to want to snatch those guys up because that's going to make headlines.
Going to want from All Elite, vice versa.
That's going to make headlines. The first guy to jump, and so WWE is
going to happen.
WWE wants.
WWE. It's when.
Yeah, and WWE wants to have that money saved to be able to make those splash signings from AEW so they can have that headline.
And if you think people were mad about the releases before, I think they're going to be real mad when someone jumps from All Elite Wrestling. I think they're going to lose their minds on that one here.
Do you really think, though, that Charlotte's in trouble, though? Do you really?
I don't know.
I don't think so.
It's so hard to say.
I absolutely don't. You know why? Because she opened up Friday Night SmackDown.
Yeah. And obviously there's no heat on Becky. She retained.
And that Friday Night SmackDown opening slot is the most watched 15 minutes of wrestling in the week.
Yeah.
So,
she opened up SmackDown. She's not in it. I don't think she's in any hot water at all.
All right, let's jump over to WWE NXT. WWE NXT had Halloween Havoc this past week. It was a pretty solid show. There were some thumbs down things on it for me, but overall, really, really strong show. Really, really strong show. I wouldn't say it's the best Halloween Havoc thing they've presented the past few years. But this is a very, very fun 2 hours of TV. We have several new champions, an incredible ladder match with the women, a strong title contender in Braun Breaker. Even though he lost, he still came off looking great. And Tommaso Ciampa is still the champion here, a new women's champion as well. Mandy Rose having a great moment. But Now it looks like we have another destination for WWE NXT. WWE shuffling their pay-per-view schedule here, pushing the December pay-per-view out to make for the day one New Year's Day pay-per-view. And then having no December pay-per-view. Previously advertised WWE TLC just not happening. So now we're getting an NXT 2.0 takeover in December. Could this be a TLC? I don't know. I've heard some people say that, but that's purely speculative. But we are getting a takeover and we are getting a pay-per-view from WWE in December. I think this is a great idea. Not have the promotion and the talk around takeover lost in the shadow of maybe a more bigger event with some more seen talents from Raw and SmackDown. Let Raw and SmackDown pump out those promos for takeover and say, hey, if you haven't checked out the new NXT, check out the new takeover. This is a good jump on point. And that is a point where people jump onto these shows.
Yeah, but also here's the thing too about this announcement is that we don't know if it's going to be called Takeover. We still don't have any confirmation if it's going to be called Takeover. Brandon Thurston sent out a tweet earlier today that the tentative date is scheduled for December 5th, according to multiple sources, but he couldn't confirm if they're going to keep the moniker Takeover through the brand. So do you think if they don't keep Takeover, do you think this is going to hurt them, or do we keep it? Do we keep the Takeover name for their big events?
I say do something different and then maybe in the future bring Takeover back or something like that. I would say do something completely different.
I wouldn't be surprised if they get rid of the Takeover name and go in a different direction, since they already are going in a different direction.
Maybe they revive some of the old school pay-per-views. So just bring back like the Great American Bash again, which they've done it for July now.
I'm not opposed to
those old WCW
fun things.
And NXT TLC, maybe. You never,
We don't need December to dismember, though.
We don't.
NXT No Mercy.
NXT Barely Legal.
NXT Great Balls of Fire.
We're gonna keep doing it. Heat Wave, Cyber Slam. Yeah, we're gonna do some weird names here. I'm all for it. I've enjoyed NXT. Everyone who's been down on the new reboot of it, I'm kind of into it. I'm getting into some of the characters. I didn't like the haunted house match. I thought they kind of didn't go anywhere and didn't end it. It was just a bunch of costumes and stuff.
It really was. It wasn't supposed to be a match. The haunted house. Was it called the haunted house match, or was it just a vignette?
It was just like last year.
It was just a vignette, right? Yeah, right.
Yeah, it was just like last year was like
fun. Last year was like fun and violent.
Last year it started outside and then it finished inside.
And it finished as like a match. It was like but we didn't get that. This was just like jump scare. And then there was a jump scare. And then someone's in an outfit and jump scare. Like it was kind of like boldly repetitive. Like nearing a Tim and Eric like comedy sketch where they just keep doing the same thing over in this very odd way. That was my least favorite thing on the show. But I loved the women's ladder match. I thought that was awesome. I thought that was the right way to go with Toxic Attraction winning on the women's titles. And Mandy Rose looked good. Mandy Rose convincingly beat Raquel Gonzalez, which I did not think was going to be easy to do, and they made that look good.
And she deserves that, man. She's been with the company since 2014, since Tough Enough, the first competitor from the series to actually become a WWE champion or a champion in WWE. None of the other former participants ever became champion. Wow. So this is actually quite the accomplishment for Mandy Rose. So good for her.
Just talking about that class that hasn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was trying to think.
Manny Escalante is texting here saying he just wants to aggravate someone on the internet here, doesn't he? He goes, hopefully, he's like, hopefully I believe he means WWE. Hopefully WWE buys Ring of Honor, then they can call NXT pay-per-views All In.
I like the way Manny Escalante thinks.
That is just the troll. You're trolling the troll.
Love it. Just so they can have the All-In rights. Wow.
They own it.
They Ring of Honor does own the All-In pay-per-view. They own the footage to that. They do. And
Jared in the chat.
Note they the reason they own that is because they filmed it, and that was their production with their talent, who was being lured away by a billionaire at the same time. So there you go. And people are always just chiming off in here about some ridiculous things.
Yeah. So Jared
What's
in the
up,
chat,
Terrell Diggs? Terrell's been watching my stuff for years. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Terrell.
So Jared in the chat there, Jose was just talking about the 2014 class. Nobody in that. In that class.
Not from that. Yeah, it's only from that class.
A lot of people made it from that class, but yep, nobody was a champion within that class. Is it who's still in there besides? Is it just Mandy and Sonia? Is that it?
It was Mandy and Sonia because ZZ, he got fired like 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah, Sarah Lee, God, the winner did nothing.
No, she did.
It was one of those things like in American Idol when they just vote for the worst person on the show.
That's what they did with Sarah Lee. Yeah,
that's exactly what happened.
You gotta love it, man. It's kind of crazy. People chiming off on all these big topics. Thank you guys so much for joining us. What else do we have to get here? I'm not forgetting anything, am I?
We have the Battle of the Belts that was announced today by AEW, guys. What was that story about today, Jeremy? Because I know the good old Uncle Dave dropped that story today.
Old Uncle Dave coming at us from Wrestling Observer Radio. It's going to be a supercard event about an hour long, inspired by the old Clash of the Champions specials that it would be like a pay-per-view on regular television type of deal for Clash of Champions. They'd usually air on the Saturday nights there, and it was about an hour and a half long, maybe a little longer than they normally would run. And so that's going to kind of be the plan for this Battle of the Belts, and kind of the idea of the specials, just kind of going back to the old days when NWA was on Turner.
It would certainly be interesting. This is another part of AEW's expansion of their media relationship with Warner Media. So we're going to see Dynamite move over to TBS, which will put them in more homes and likely give them more of a great opportunity to reach more than 1 million people every single week. Doesn't mean they're going to do it, though. I mean, TBS, everyone thinks, just because TBS is in more homes, they're going to get more audience. It's worth noting TBS has struggled with some of their programming to reach an audience that isn't sports related. I'm just saying what TBS has been dealing with on and off for the past few years.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have the issue of WWE is coming at those Dynamite numbers and showing to some advertisers what they can draw, as they did this past Friday with the SmackDown that was on cable television. So it puts it in the same cable TV rankings night of with Dynamite, and they beat them, and they beat them significantly in the demographic for men 18 to 49, and in the overall audience by several 100,000. You're going to have this issue here with Dynamite when it gets closer to the realm of top tier cable. So now you're playing in the realm of USA Network, right? Of, are we going to buy WWE or we're going to buy All Elite Wrestling? It depends on what you want. You can play the demos all these different ways. I think both brands will end up doing pretty well on this, but it does show that AEW can counter with these specials now from time to time. Something makes me think they're going to try and put one of these on a night when there's a WWE pay-per-view. I think that is what I think.
Or Rampage
is going to be.
Or Rampage starts early.
Yeah, that too. But the real thing
I would not put it past AEW with what happened earlier this year and the tough talk that Tony Khan put out there, that they put one of these TV specials that are basically like free pay-per-views on live television the same time as a WWE pay-per-view. Because if everything lines up, WWE's talking about doing a UK stadium show the Saturday afternoon or the Saturday of, potentially. Doesn't mean it's going to happen. It's potential. This isn't the Sportskeeda guys telling you this is going to happen. WWE could potentially run a stadium in the UK, sell it out because fans want that to happen in the UK, and do it the same night or the same weekend as All Out. So, All Elite could counter with something like this, especially when they have something. It's a weekend show. It's a special. They're not going to do that on a Friday. They're going to do. They potentially they could, but something makes me think something like that or shows like that, because they're contracted to do more, could drop on a Saturday, and maybe they try and just throw that at WWE in some way.
Yeah, I don't know. I could see like going head to head with a Peacock where they could watch it on demand is not going to really hurt them that much, or if they're really wanting to compete. So that's why
you could watch the AEW show on demand. Everything on cable is on demand.
Yeah,
that's kind of a mute point. You know what I mean? So I don't know, but it's definitely the idea is, can we pull something away from them?
Yeah.
I think they'll be able to at some point. Just because with everything that they're doing with the expansion with the shows, They're looking into the streaming deals. Tony Schiavone the other day said on the podcast that the Warner Media is already talking to HBO Max to carry some of the AEW footage in library. So they're going to be head-to-head at some point, competing down the line, streaming, pay-per-views, same-day events. It's going to happen, Kevin. It's going to happen.
People going on here. Dalton Summer saying, at Kev Kellam, have you heard speculation of Jerry Jones going in on WWE? Jerry Jones is the owner of the Dallas Cowboys, the NFL team. He's a very successful businessman. He is Jerrytown in Dallas. They're going to host another WrestleMania. The Dallas Cowboys and Jerry Jones were very much involved in the promotion and marketing of the last WrestleMania. And from what I understand, they are very accommodating to the marketing of the upcoming WrestleMania. Do I think they're going to go in on WWE? I've heard about this, but it's purely speculation. It's still worth noting that WWE is a publicly traded company. So if you really wanted to be aggressive, maybe not have a hostile takeover, but definitely have what they call an aggressive minority stake in the company would be interesting. At the same time, WWE, you've had a lot of executives sell some stocks. So there is stock out there. You can have someone buy their way into the board here if they really wanted it. And Jerry Jones is the guy I think that could do that if he really wanted to. It's not to say that he doesn't have the money to do it. Do I think he's going to do it? I don't know about that. I don't know if WWE would tolerate something like that either. But maybe somebody that they want in the boardroom. You know, WWE's all about bringing in new people right now, and that is not just talent on the screen. That is people behind the scenes, and you see how much influence Nick Khan, who's only been with the company a few years, has now.
And Jerry knows how to make money too. So
true. He also knows how to aggravate some fans in the process. Yeah. But that's what WWE does. They're so mad.
Well, that too. Yeah.
So
it's a match made in heaven.
Plenty of different takes here, and a lot of people are sounding off on all these different things here. We're getting questions about The Rock. Is there any news on Dwayne The Rock Johnson WrestleMania goes to California? No news. There's no new news on it. That's not us deflecting your question. There's just simply nothing new to discuss on that front here. Sneaking this one in here before we sign off. Sean Smith, who's always with us, with his awful Yankees logo that he always has in the chat. Sean says, do you think Turner executives, Turner Broadcasting, they're not Warner Media, have cringed when Tony Khan has said that he wants to have a great idea for a TV car, something like Clash of the Champions? That's what this is. There's so many things. There's so many things like culturally.
Battle of the Belts is Clash of the Champions rebranded.
Yes, there's so many things culturally that AEW does that they want to constantly go back to the WCW like name shelf and grab it and put it. If they could call a show Spring Stampede, they would. If they could have a Super Brawl, they would.
It really has nothing to do with WWE at all. It's more of the lineage of when a Clash of the Champions aired on TBS with NWA and WCW and Turner.
But who's been putting Clash of the Champions on television for the last 10 years?
Yeah. So in Turner is
WWE.
Well, it hasn't been on TV. It's been on pay-per-view.
Yeah, and Turner's Turner's not cringing. Turner's pretty happy with how AEW is performing financially. So.
I know Sean was going for the trolley stuff. He's just trying to aggravate people. I get it. I get it here. Terrell wants to know who's going to face Roman Reigns for the Universal Championship at WrestleMania 38.
Brock Lesnar.
Yeah, it looks like it's going to be Brock right now.
Yeah, well, it's 38 next. Jeez, that's right. Had to count them. Is the next one 38?
5 months tickets go on sale next week, fellas.
Yeah,
Brock's gonna get magically reinstated before the Rumble and win it.
What?
James has this question here. Hey, you know for sure you don't hear SK saying anything about AEW buying. This is worded weird. I guess you're asking, did AEW buy the Ring of Honor tape library, which is reportedly up for sale? If true, it would have been breaking news. Here's this thing about that. No, there's just widespread speculation. People just assume that All Elite Wrestling wants to buy the tape library. There is no confirmed designated source right now that will go on the record and say All Elite Wrestling wants to purchase the tape library. Because another thing to talk about is they have a YouTube, they have a strong YouTube, a strong digital presence, they have a strong all those different things, but they don't have an on-demand video portal. Are they in talks for a streaming service? It's been looked at, but how serious are those talks? We don't know.
A lot of those talks have been with more of like what they call now the fast stuff you see on Pluto, free TV, where they think that they would put
ad-supported stuff like a Hulu tier, which is still sort of like paid, but you just have a separate deal. WWE has one of those. You can watch Raw and SmackDown on Hulu.
Pluto does it amazing on because they got Impact, they got all the independent stuff.
Price is Right.
They got
American Gladiators.
Yes. Pluto's doing it right.
Which, I don't not necessarily going to put the pay-per-views on there, but they could put a lot of episodes of Dark on there.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I mean, Impact puts pay-per-views on there, but they got a whole big body of work that they can do that with. So on the free Pluto.
But I think that's just a widespread assumption that people think just because, a bunch of guys that were in All Elite Wrestling were in Ring of Honor, so they're going to buy. It just isn't a given, like
AEW's
really
going to get it. They're going to AEW. He's signing with AEW. AEW is going to be buying it. Guys.
And here's DB Cooper, the DB Cooper who stole the money from the plane and got away with it. DB Cooper. He says, "Hey yo. I'm here in St. Louis. AEW Rampage, Shavitz Arena, November 5th. Royal Rumble in January in the Lou. Which show would you rather see live? I'd rather see both. But if you have to choose between the two." And you haven't been to a Royal Rumble, go to the Rumble. Go to the Rumble. If you have a choice between the two, I would go to the Rumble every time.
Oh, the Rumble's my favorite pay-per-view.
Yeah, and that's no shot at AEW, but Rampage still is a show that has some cool matches on it. But if you had a choice between the two and you could only go to one, and you're like a college kid and you're saving up your money or something like that, I would go to the Rumble. I've been to a Rumble. It's so much fun. To see what's going to happen next and what that thrill is like. And the Royal Rumble matches themselves for the better part of the last 5 or 6 years have all really delivered. Even the one in the Thunderdome was really, really good too. So that's what's going on here. Sportskeeda Wrestling Stop Story. Stop story. We're gonna stop the top story. That's what we're doing. If you haven't done it already, go ahead and subscribe to the Sportskeeda Wrestling podcast channel. We are available in the podcast feeds on Apple, on Spotify. We're soon going to start doing it on Stitcher, which is pretty cool. I'm trying to get us on as many platforms as we can get on. We have exclusive interviews on there as well. Recent ones with Dominic Mysterio, with Drew McIntyre, Vince Russo reviewing Monday Night Raw every single Monday night. He had a lot to say about last night's Monday Night Raw. Dutch Mantel with us after SmackDown and Rampage, and of course the debrief with that lovely gentleman right over there, Jose and Rico El Glorioso, covering AEW.
You said it perfectly today.
I was trying. I worked on it. Covering everything going on.
He can't say top story, but he can say Rico
El Glorioso.
The thing is, I stopped talking. I slowed down, and I let blood get to my brain, which I think is the important part. I have to let the blood get to my brain. If you guys aren't doing it already, go ahead and follow Jose_G_official. Follow at JB Huskers. Follow me, Kev Kellam, right there. If you aren't doing it, why aren't you following? Seriously, how have you not started following Sportskeeda Wrestling on the Twitter machine? You aren't doing that? Come on, dude. We're dropping hot takes on there. We're tweeting during the shows. We're dropping funny memes, all that good stuff. Remember, when watching wrestling, do the most important thing, no matter how much you want to bitch or troll someone that likes another wrestling promotion. You go on the internet to find other people that don't agree with you so you can argue with people you're never going to meet in real life on the internet.
Take a breath.
Yeah,
I was doing it again. Just remember, what do they got to do, boys?
Enjoy wrestling.
Yeah.
Yeah, tell them.
Let me talk to you.
Tell them.